Hello there and welcome to Films According to Chris Wyatt. Today's film, just in time for Halloween, is Goosebumps.
Goosebumps the movie is based on the long-running children's horror novel series from author R.L. Stine, with the first novel published back in 1992.
Goosebumps. Man, boy, do these take me back. These books were really popular back in the mid-90s, and I was a huge fan of them too. Don't know how well they hold up, since I haven't read one in, almost 20 years, but I do remember them having really creative stories.
I've always said that the horror genre has some of the most creative and inventive story possibilities, and Goosebumps were great examples of that. You had stories based on classic horror lore like haunted houses, werewolves, mummies, to more unique ideas like possessed Halloween apparel, a psychopathic ventriloquist dummy, a horror-themed amusement park, or an evil camera that brought harm to people whose pictures were taken with it. The novels even inspired a TV series that ran for a couple years. It was basically a kid's version of Tales from the Crypt with a little bit of the Twilight Zone.
And now Goosebumps gets its first theatrical motion picture.
The movie plays out more of a tribute to the series as a whole than a direct adaptation of any one book. The plot follows the teenage Zach Cooper, played by Dylan Minnette, who moves from New York to the small town of Madison, Delaware. He takes a sudden interest in his neighbor Hannah, played by Odeya Rush, but is put off by her eccentric father, known around town as Mr. Shivers, played by Jack Black. Expressing concern for Hannah, Zach and his friend Champ sneak into Hannah's house only to discover that Mr. Shivers is none other than author R.L. Stine himself. He also discovers that the monsters Stine created are real and are only contained in the manuscripts of his long-running Goosebumps books. But when Zach accidentally unleashes them, all hell breaks loose and the four reluctant heroes race the clock to save the town.
Nobody make a sound.
Interesting setup for a Goosebumps film, admittedly, but does it work?
Well, won't deny that the film has its share of problems. Quite a few of them, actually. But I won't deny that the film works.
I'll admit that I wasn't really expecting much out of this one, but after seeing it, I have to say that the movie is pretty fun. Nothing great, but definitely enjoyable. The movie has frequently been compared to Jumanji, and yeah, that's actually mostly a fair comparison. They're both essentially adventure films, although Goosebumps obviously leans more on horror iconography other than the adventure serials that inspired Jumanji. They're about a group of friends facing some kind of supernatural conflict where dangerous beings continuously pop up and wreak havoc throughout the town. The plot is engaging enough, most of the characters are likable, and the creatures are creative.
Right, now I remember.
Like I said, the movie plays out more like a kid's action-adventure film rather than a straight-up horror movie, though there's enough horror influence in it, namely how many of the creatures clearly take inspiration from previous horror novels or movies, including The Blob, Christine, Gremlins, and many others.
But like I said, the film isn't without its problems.
The pacing itself can't help but come off as awfully erratic, and a lot of the effects used to render the said creatures look decent from a design perspective, but the CGI itself could have used a little more polish. The cast is across-the-board average when all is said and done. Like I said, the characters are mostly likable, even if the actors themselves don't exactly hit bullseyes. Actors like Dylan Minnette, Odeya Rush, and Amy Ryan are generally serviceable, but they don't leave any major lasting impressions. Jack Black often overplays it a bit, but he does have a few amusing scenes as both Stine and also voicing Slappy the evil dummy. Though Ryan Lee as Zach's neurotic friend Champ is actually really annoying and grating as hell. I know he's the comic relief, but yeah, I didn't laugh much at his shtick. Speaking of which, the film does try to balance the thrills with a lighthearted sense of humor. That definitely goes a long way to keep the film kid-friendly enough for the very young crowd, but most of the jokes just aren't that funny. Definitely not to adults, and to be honest, most of the kids in the theater didn't laugh much either.
Gnomes?
Maybe they're friendly. Not friendly. Definitely not friendly.
In the end, I personally thought the pros outweighed the cons, though your mileage may vary.
Whether the film is objectively good is debatable, and part of me can't help but wonder if my nostalgia is getting the better of me. But honestly, I don't know if that's really such a bad thing. If a movie, especially a family movie, is able to tap into your inner child and bring you back to a time where the new Goosebumps book hitting the shelves was the highlight of your week, then it's clearly doing something right. Between the erratic pacing, merely average acting, and humor that misses more often than it hits, I probably won't be lining up to see it again anytime soon, but the sheer energy and creativity employed made it an enjoyable watch. I imagine down the road, Goosebumps will become a new Halloween cult classic family movie, alongside movies like Hocus Pocus or The Monster Squad. Films of debatable quality, but enough energy and creativity to remain endearing over the years. I give Goosebumps 3 stars out of 5.
Come on, scaredy cat.
Alright, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of Goosebumps by leaving me a comment below. And if you like what you saw and you want to see more, click subscribe and tune in next Monday for a new video. I've also got links to some of my previous videos here and links to my social media pages in the description box below. Happy Halloween, everyone, and I'll see you next week.
Viewer beware, you're in for